All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome so much for being here on my first ever live stream Q&A. There have been a little bit of technical difficulties already. If you were going to my previous link, it is not working for whatever reason. I have been trying to start my live for the past 5 minutes using my previous link, and it's not working. So I apologize. Hopefully, all of you will be able to come over to this live stream. And please feel free to type into the chat, comment, ask your questions, anything that you've had burning and just waiting to be asked. Please, by all means, join me here and participate in my live Q&A. So I have been just flooded with questions. I have them all written down here in my handy dandy notebook. So I will start with those and kind of work from there. And I will keep an eye in the chat. And if you need to add something, want to participate, ask a question, please feel free to do so. Okay, so question number one, easily my most requested question, the things that I get asked most often, both in person and online. How do you make your money online and how much do you make? I am not going to share all of my personal financial information with all of you. Um, I appreciate all of you and your viewership, but in the same way that you wouldn't ask someone at a dinner party how much they make, I'm not going to share personal financial records here. However, I will say that when I left the traditional classroom, my agreement with my husband was that I needed to make at least what I was making in the traditional classroom per month, bringing home the same amount of money after taxes, after fees, what have you. And I have easily done that. And really, the key component here is not only have I done that, I was working about 50 hours a week outside of the house when I worked in the traditional classroom. I am now actually like live teaching about 15 hours a week, making the same amount of money. So it's definitely, it can be a significant source of income. Let me adjust my camera for all of you here. So it definitely can be a significant source of income if done properly, but you're really going to have to put in the work like you would for any other business venture. And I do teach, like I said, about 15 hours live online right now. That does not count my grading, my planning, any other type of extracurricular activities that we might have to do, like parent emails. I really get a lot of parent emails, and I can't even tell you how many hours I spend on parent emails a week. As a matter of fact, as I'm talking to all of you, parent email. Um, so that it really is kind of a constant thing. But 15 actual teaching hours is equaling for me what I was making teaching 50 hours a week. Now, the question that I can answer with a little bit more clarity is, how do I make money online? My primary vehicle for making money online is teaching with Outschool. That's where I'm doing all of those 15 hours. I previously taught with VIPKID as well. I was doing, I'd have to, I want to say I was doing 5 hours a day at my peak with VIPKID. So about 25 hours a week there. I am no longer actively teaching with VIPKID. I still am under contract, but it didn't work as well with my schedule and with my family schedule as Outschool is. So that is my primary source of income. Now, on top of that, I have my Teachers Pay Teacher store that averages about $50 a month. And I have not touched it in about a year. It's really just passive income at this point. I put my resources up. I promoted them in the beginning, but I really don't do any promotion with them now, and they just kind of sell themselves. Obviously, during the summer, it goes down to about $20-$30 a month, and then, this past month was just about 80. So I would say I probably average somewhere in the $50 a month range from Teachers Pay Teachers. I also am an Amazon affiliate. I have a blog where I do sponsored posts. I have affiliate links there. I do product reviews. I actually was just contacted this week with a new product review that I will have up for all of you very, very soon. So that is an income source as well, as is Google AdSense. Now, I will caution all of you. You're watching me on YouTube. I know a lot of you want to kind of break into the online industry, make money that way. YouTube is not a moneymaker for me. It is a marketing tool. In fact, my channel is not monetized at all. So you really have to hit a very high level of viewership in order to monetize your channel. So I use this as a marketing tool, my blog as well. Outside of the sponsored posts, I'm not making a ton of money. I just hit my Google AdSense threshold of $100 a year after I started. So I would definitely say that teaching far and away is definitely how I make my money. And then Teachers Pay Teachers and sponsored posts. This year, I've made about $300 in sponsored posts. So again, it's not exactly my yearly salary, but it definitely helps, make ends meet during the month. Okay, so question 2. I actually received this question in 2 separate emails this week from 2 separate teachers who I can totally relate to because I have been there, done that. I want to leave the traditional classroom. Where do I start? Whew, that's a big one. Like I said, been there, done that. I have several videos and blog posts talking about that very thing. I think the best thing to do, let's say that you have assessed everything. You've determined that this is not the right plan for me. This is not where I want to be. I want to do other things. I want to teach online. I would say to start with VIPKID because of 2 things. Number 1, after you get past kind of the crazy hurdles to get hired, they do have kind of a complicated hiring process. Once you get past that, it's actually a really easy teaching job. It's really, really easy. Once you kind of understand their curriculum, you understand some of the cultural differences, because there are some cultural differences. It's really easy for classroom teachers to transition into VIPKID. There are a couple of things. They are on China's time, obviously. So for the East Coast, it's either 12 or 13 hours difference, depending on if we're in daylight savings time. So 8 p.m. here is 8 a.m. there. So it's a lot of late nights and early mornings. That might work well for some of you. For others, not so much. But they have decent pay. It's about $20 an hour, depending on where you get hired in. And they always have students ready and waiting. They've really, really kind of blossomed over the past year. I've been with them for almost 2 years now, which is crazy. Um, so yeah, I started almost 2 years ago. It's been about 18 months. Um, so they've really exploded, and you can really find a large audience there. So I would say if you're just kind of starting to get your feet wet, you haven't taught online, that's what I would go with. Once you kind of understand the process, then I would absolutely look into Outschool. I would not move on to Outschool until you are comfortable kind of with this format. And you do have to write your own curriculum, which again, that may work for you, that may not work for you. You write your own curriculum, you plan out your schedule yourself. You can teach anytime, day or night, as long as you have students who are willing to participate. So, those are my first two places to go if you're really looking to get out of the classroom. And if you have your own resources, absolutely go to Teachers Pay Teachers. Like I said, once you kind of put the work in up front, it's really passive income from there on out. Okay, question 3. What about taxes? Whew. Everybody kind of gets a little bit weird when you start talking about taxes because you are self employed. I have an employer identification number. I got that. Sorry, there's a fly. I got that because I didn't want to submit my social security number to the various platforms that I teach on. Sometimes you will have to if you have a background check. But set aside about 30% for taxes. I don't necessarily have to pay all 30% at the end of the year. Last year, it was about 15%. So the rest that I had set aside, that was essentially like a refund. So I do file as self employed with my own employer ID. And I just make sure that I have that money set aside. It's kind of tricky because we're so used to working in these traditional jobs that we're used to the money just being held before we ever even see it. So it feels weird. It's like, oh, why am I setting aside this, 30%? Um, I promise it's about what you would normally have withheld. It's a little bit higher because you do not have an employer withholding Social Security or Medicare for you, Medicaid. Yeah, so that it's a little bit different there. Question 4. How do I engage students online / classroom management? For those of us who are used to teaching um, in a regular classroom, that can be really daunting. Again, this week, the same teacher who asked about leaving the traditional classroom, she was like, how do I use resources? Like, how do I use physical resources in the classroom? How do I engage my students? It really depends on how old they are, what topic you're teaching, what grade level. It really, kind of varies. Now, I will tell you, and this goes back to my VIPKID days. For my young kids, you use a puppet. Um, as silly as it seems, you use a puppet, you know where your camera is, you talk to the camera, you sing songs, you do silly things. Really, it's all about learning how to work the camera, how to show things. I have a literature class that I actually just taught a couple hours ago, and I read books to young children, and we talk about different story elements. And I show the physical book on camera the same way you would in a classroom. Classroom management, I prefer online. It can be a little bit tricky because some students feel as though they're in the safety of their own homes, so they could, potentially act up. Outschool has a chat room, and sometimes they, like to say things that are not totally classroom appropriate in chat. But really, I have not had any major issues, and I teach ages all the way from 5 up to 18. And for the most part, they get one warning and they settle down. It's really all a matter of understanding what your options are based on the platform. If you are on Outschool, you can literally just remove them from the classroom. Just I think that's the option, what it's called, remove from classroom. Click it, and it bumps them out, and they know you mean business. With VIPKID, again, there are some cultural issues. So you want to handle it a little bit differently, but essentially you can contact their parents and let them know that you've had an issue. But you can absolutely use all of the same resources you use in a traditional classroom. You just have to use it a little bit differently. You have to be very aware of where your camera is and how to use it. Okay, so I'm already teaching online. How do I increase enrollment? I have already made one video on this specifically for Outschool, but really, it's really all about knowing your audience. Understanding if you're teaching with VIPKID, that is a very, very different audience than Outschool. And if you are teaching on Outschool, who are you teaching? Are you teaching the younger students, older students? What subject matter are you teaching? Where can you find that audience and engage with them? I promote mostly on Facebook. Can you guys see this fly? This is ridiculous. So I promote mostly on Facebook because that's where my audience is. My audience is pretty much me, which is kind of funny. Women between the ages of 35 and 50, sometimes down to 30 and 50, typically in North America, typically have students. They could be homeschoolers. A lot of times they are teachers themselves. So I have kind of my list of people, and I know my audience, and I know how to promote my business. You have to know how to use social media, use YouTube, use Facebook, use Instagram, Twitter, wherever your audience is. If I go and post, say, a gaming video on Twitch, which I do love gaming, that's not my audience. Teenage boys are not going to come over, go, oh, I love her, video game posting. I'm going to come over and, purchase a class on Outschool. That's not going to happen. You have to understand who your audience is and how to best reach them. Once you start kind of getting those student enrollments flowing in, that's when you want to keep and maintain your families. I've been very, very fortunate to maintain a large number of my students. And that's mostly just by taking an active interest in what's going on in their lives, being understanding of scheduling issues, and teaching classes with low enrollment, which is kind of the bane of a lot of online teachers' existence, because teaching, a 4-week class with one student is almost a financial loss. But as I've discovered very early on in my online teaching career, I taught an 8-week class with 2 students who ended up staying with me the whole year in various other classes, and their entire family has now taken classes, brothers, sisters, and it really kind of snowballed from there. So sometimes you do have to take those losses early on in order to increase your enrollment. Okay, so favorite class to teach. I get asked that a lot, especially by fellow Outschool teachers. What is my favorite class to teach? That's really hard because I do design all of my courses myself. All of the curriculum is written by me. I am in charge of the whole shebang. So it's kind of like, choosing between children. Uh, if I had to pick, um, Obviously, Hamilton seems like an easy choice just because the kids are so super passionate about it when they show up. And I get to be passionate and kind of theater geek out with them. And then a close tie is my comic book creative writing, kind of for the same reason. I'm not necessarily a huge comic book fan, but my students are, and they are so excited to share. They want to talk about the Marvel universe and all of these crazy things and how that's going to play into their writing and how they're going to create a comic book. And it's just so great to see students really passionate and engaged with what they do, especially when it comes to writing, because not everybody enjoys writing. Okay, my last scheduled question for today: best advice for those starting out. Um, wow. I mean, there's so much really when you're first starting out, it can seem overwhelming. Uh, there are so many different things that um, you really need to take into account. And I know when I first started, I was like, I don't even know if I can handle this. I almost backed out of my VIPKID interview twice because I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. This seems like a lot. I don't know. Really, it's so much better for me, not for everyone, so much better for me than teaching in the traditional classroom. It really has afforded me a lot of flexibility. So my best advice is to be yourself. As cliche as that sounds, figure out what is unique about you, what you are passionate about. There are a million language arts teachers on Outschool. I'm one of them. But if you find what you're passionate about and kind of that niche, you can really build a following. That's what happened with my Hamilton class. Students kind of engaged with me on a different level because, I lovingly use the term theater geek, and the kids love that because, like, yes, she gets it. She understands. We can talk about all of these, shows and Broadway and all of these things. And then, oh, yeah, we're also talking about artistic choices. We're also talking about, how they wrote the characters, how they represented historical figures in a different way. We're talking about history and kind of historical inaccuracies with the show. Um, and so that's really it. You have to find that something special about you that's going to engage the students. It's going to engage the parents. It's going to make you stand out in a sea of other online teachers. So I apologize for all of kind of the craziness with the live link. I'm going to see if I can figure that out. And I may just have to, I don't know, set up my live stream differently for next time because for whatever reason, it didn't work the first time. But thank you all so much for being here, for participating, and for always supporting me in my next venture. So I will see all of you very soon. Bye, everybody.